Okay, we're live. It's WestWorld, episode 5, season 3, episode 5, and we just went live. I don't know what you guys thought of the episode, but I'll just ask you right now. What did you think of tonight's episode?
I think we should hear what Jack has to say first.
Just as he gets a big gulp.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. Great sci-fi episode. The music was fantastic. Mm-hmm. Who doesn't like love story? You know.
Was that genre 3, the Richard Kleiderman?
I thought it was 4, but it could have been 3. I don't know, but I do like the fact that when they got to the beach, I said, "Oh, the Warriors have returned to Coney Island." So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot, and it left some mystery of what's going on. Answered. I don't know if it answered any. It did. I guess it answered some questions, but okay, I loved it. I thought it was a great episode.
You, Eckhart?
I thought it did a good job of expanding the world. Yeah. It did that. I don't know. There must be a term for this where they give you answers, but then also give you new questions. I mean, it was that what we expected. Yeah, they lost it up. But they, I hate to say this because I really like the actress, but I really feel like the episodes that don't have Maeve or have less Maeve are actually the better ones this season, and also in season 2 as well. So this episode was really tight, even though it spanned really multiple timelines because it gave the whole Serac backstory. And I guess this is my moment where I have to say that my crackpot theory has been blown out of the water. And by the way, I realized I wasn't the only one. Probably most people with a tech background thought that Serac was actually the AI. But here we got the definite answer that not only was he not the AI, but it wasn't just him who built it, but his brother.
Right.
So we'll get into that in a lot of detail. So I'm going to push the question back to Ethan in terms of what you felt about this episode.
I really, really liked it. It's in my wheelhouse as far as things to talk about because of the movie, because of the genre. Drug that he took. It gives me a lot to talk about, and it not too much TMI here, but kind of been there, so I kind of could see Caleb's point of view, especially at the beginning. I did like it. I had a couple problems, but I'm sure we'll get to those. It also kind of blew out the theory that a lot of people had that Serac and Ford were brothers.
Yeah, but you know what they did? And this is actually what I think good shows do. The beginning scene where they show, again, the origin story with the destruction of Paris, and they show young Serac and his brother running around. They obviously made them look like the little boy from Ford's,
right,
like Ford's avatar in WestWorld, right? So that they're really using it's almost like a variation on a theme, right? So I like that. But
I had a theory last week on the podcast that Serac was either being controlled by Bernard or is Bernard. And I'm still holding out hope for it. And
there were definitely scenes there where obviously when they're standing in front of, I guess they called it the main node, in front of that big thing that kind of looked like a red version of the Pan Am logo.
Yeah, that's
right.
God. Well, they call it God, right?
Yeah. So Rehoboam, that Bernard was much more intense. Like you could see he was totally synced with what was going on there.
Right.
Listen, I don't want to talk too much about the other podcast you do, but I do have to say, let me look at my notes. If you don't introduce yourself tomorrow as Giant Steel Ballsack, I'll be very disappointed.
Yeah.
That's all.
Let me write that down.
Yeah.
Giant steel ball sack that kind of looks like a red Pan Am logo.
It does look like a red Pan Am logo. You're correct on that.
Yeah. I thought obviously someone's watching Watchmen a lot again.
Mm-hmm.
More than once.
Yeah.
So, nostalgia genre whole episode, especially when they started with the black and white.
I mean, my theory, of course, Ethan, is, and I mean, I kind of said this off the cuff, but I think it's more and more realistic that after they got done with season 2 and they got a lot of blowback, that like a few days later, the Lindelof residence, the doorbell rang, and here, Nolan and Lisa Joy showed up and said, "Please, Mr. Lindelof, teach us how to improve the craft." Right?
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. If you have a great concept and you slipped, there's nothing wrong with changing it up. And like I said, if you're a sci-fi fan, I don't know how you can't how you're not enjoying this season. And I know there are people out there, and I'm not saying you have to enjoy this season. I'm just saying it's so sci-fi that and to me, the story is. I want more of what's like this episode. I'm like, I even looked like, oh crap, we only got like 5 minutes left.
And what's actually fascinating is, and I was the one who was probably most critical of season 2, is that I've actually been going back and watching it, and a lot of the themes that we're tackling with in season 3 in terms of free will and memory and freedom, I mean, it's continuous. The problem with season 2 was that there was so much weird filler that was surrounded the park that if you actually cut out if you cut out the entire Maeve storyline and you cut out half of the Dolores storyline that dealt with Teddy and just focused on Bernard and some of the key scenes of Dolores and even cut out half of Men in Black, you actually get something that's on the same quality of what we saw tonight.
Okay. I mean, yeah, like I forget about the one before this, but the last 2 episodes have been all killer, no filler, as they say.
Yeah.
It's just been like pedal to the metal, kind of pushing it forward, and I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so we're in agreement that the way that they treated the genre drug was outstanding.
And it was great.
And the moment I heard, and Ethan, I know you caught this too, the moment that you heard those first few bars of the WestWorld theme, but in a different instrumentation. You knew that something great was about to happen, right?
Well, I mean, did we want to get into this, like this drug and what happened? Because
let's go with it.
Because, like, I wanted to break down the movies that it references. Like, tell me if you guys disagree. We got Casablanca at the front.
Yeah, I was gonna say film noir. Yeah,
film noir in general. Yeah. Ride of the Valkyries only brings to mind Apocalypse Now to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Love Story.
Love Story,
obviously, because it's Love Story. Made me think of Ryan O'Neal and Ali McGraw and Robert Evans.
I actually saw it at the drive-in with my parents. Took my sisters and I to the drive-in.
Did they have a speaker? Or did you have to tune it to an AM radio station?
No, it was you had to put the thing on the. I think that was before they had that technology. This is back in like the early 70s.
Never been to a drive-in, not once.
Never been to a drive-in?
No, I mean there weren't around. There was like one like in Ellicott City in Maryland at some point.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You haven't lived until you've been to a drive-in.
I guess I'm dead. No, okay. Well, I don't know if you guys caught this, and I mean I really want to go deep into this. Night Clubbing, when they were in the subway, is an Iggy Pop song. And that song 100% says to me the movie Trainspotting. Okay. That was featured very...
I liked the song, but I didn't recognize it. Very
heavily. And Trainspotting is probably in my top 4 or 5 favorite movies of all time. It came out... Go ahead.
I didn't catch that, but... And here's it's showing my cards. I've never seen Trainspotting, even though I should have, because I've heard great things about it, obviously. But without even knowing that that's featured in Trainspotting, I know enough about Trainspotting to sense that song gave the vibe of like just this great soundtrack that you'd use for a bunch of hoodlums who are just walking through an area and don't care about what's happening around them, that feel invincible.
I would have gone with the Warriors song.
Well, In the City?
Yeah.
The Joe Walsh song?
Yeah, because they're in a subway, right?
Right.
They're like a gang, and have the little guy clicking the little Warriors come out to play. I mean that to me, I right away when they go on the beach, I go, it's the Warriors.
Well, that's where I think my experience with what I talked about before comes in a little handy. because Train Spotting is a movie about a bunch of heroin junkies. I'm not saying that, but it was actually filmed to have the frenetic pace of someone who is on ecstasy at the time. So that's where the color palette, I think, came from specifically for that scene. And of course, Aaron Paul's slow walking through.
And of course, you also have all those flashing lights in the subway.
Sure, and you
that
know,
plays into it.
For the first time all season, my wife watched it with me, and she kept focusing on Dolores's eyes, and how they kept flashing too. And I was like, "Well, he's all messed up," and she was like, "No, there's something else there." So obviously, she's got glasses. She's got insight glasses in her eye.
What's the fifth genre?
All right, so check it out. On the beach, they go with the Shining theme.
Yeah,
right. But that's not the movie. Because I think the movie that they're referencing is Clockwork Orange because of Caleb's flashbacks.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right.
You know what I mean? Because he's really in some MK Ultra, like Clockwork Orange, Room 23 stuff going on there.
Right.
And and between that is Space Oddity, which I can't think of a movie.
Right.
But I think that they wanted Life on Mars, but it was already used this year by somebody else. But if you guys disagree, I mean that's what I got from the movies.
But the Space Oddity, when does that play? Does that play when they're outside as well?
That's where I have an issue. That's when
they're playing. What are they playing? Ground Control of Major Tom.
Yeah, that's Space Oddity.
Yeah.
When they're coming out of the subway, and it's supposed to be, forgive me, please, leftovers type chaos, and it's not. And that's like my biggest issue with the episode is their representation of what is supposed to be chaos. At that point, I thought it was way subdued, and I thought it was supposed to be way more. They had someone throw a rock,
but there's not a lot of people. We keep bringing that up. There's this huge city, but there's not a lot of people in it.
Also, you're dealing with people who are kind of awaking from a more of an automaton state.
Yeah, that's true.
So, like, you could justify the back. I don't mean to whataboutism it, but like, it's kind of weird. That to me, actually, the thing that made the least sense in the chaos, I thought most of it made sense in that what you saw were people kind of just sitting there, like looking at their smartphones, just like completely like shell shocked, right?
Because the information they were getting was devastating.
So to me, what I thought was the weirdest thing were those two people coming out of the cab that just opened up fire on them.
Yeah. And Dolores took the bullets.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he figured it out. He's
like, at least I hope so.
At least, yeah. I just, I hate to do it again. Here it comes. I have this shot of Kevin Garvey Sr. from The Leftovers. They have one shot of him, like when he's explaining when he's all crazy in Australia, and he's explaining a little bit about what happened right after the event. And they have a shot from him from the back, and just complete chaos going on, like, everywhere. I just thought it was very subdued, and the first thing you see is like a guy stealing someone else's phone to check it out. Like,
well, wasn't that kind of? I know what you're talking about. I was implying like there was that great screenshot of the businessman where they show his like review from his colleagues, and his colleagues basically call him an a-hole.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that, like, wait, that person said that about me. So it has a very much of a social media type feel to it in terms of chaos. Also, I mean, Kevin Garvey Sr., that shot from behind, that might have been day 5 or day 6 of chaos, right? Yeah. Right now, we just these people are just waking up right now. Like, they're probably not, half these people aren't even sure if this thing is just like a hoax.
Well, I mean, when the lady gets, it's it was pretty mean, and it's a pretty deep, horrible form of terrorism to do what she did, I think, depending on the person. So if I get a text saying...
You're saying Dolores? What Dolores did?
Yeah. Because, I mean, if you're giving people I guess it's kind of breaking their loops. It's exactly what they're doing. But if you give a lady a text saying her daughter is going to kill herself when she's 12 or whatever it said about...
Yeah, that was rough. Now, Dolores, does she want to save humanity? Does she want to destroy humanity, or does she just want to destroy the control that they have, Serac has over people?
I think Bernard is the answer to that, but we don't know what it is.
It's still not clear because, again, as I'm watching season 2, she's pretty consistent about wanting to destroy their world.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it's up to, she talks about, to Caleb how she's freeing these people. But you could see actually a lot of this episode was the whole debate. And, I didn't think that Dempsey character would be important. But, he's basically arguing against it, right?
Right.
I mean, it didn't help him in the end. In the end, he died. But the point was that, he's saying, look, you might not think this is good, but, if the alternative is probably worse. And it's to be determined, okay? But the point is that, like, it's not clear. The only thing we actually know about Dolores that's consistent is that she says that she wants to destroy their world.
Right.
So I think we have to assume that she's just trying to create as much chaos as possible here.
She was screwing up left and right tonight. Why does she keep running ahead from? Why is she leaving Caleb with Liam? Like every time she walks ahead, something bad happens. You know what I mean? It's like she walks away for 2 minutes, he's on drugs. She walks away for 2 minutes, he's dead in the beach.
I agree. I mean, this episode definitely exposed some of her flaws. Like she didn't know what that drug was.
No, she didn't.
But she went about it like trusting him to do all the things that she needed him to do, even though he was under the influence.
Yeah.
Well, you have the magic bullet.
Well, yeah, you have the magic bullet. Yeah.
You just fire it. There was nothing else that could have happened.
It went back and to the left.
Yeah. Does she need Caleb?
She needed him this episode.
She needed him this, but does she need him later on? I mean,
she's being very hard to read.
Yeah, because when they got to the beach, they said we don't need Liam anymore.
I think it's a moot point. We, the viewers, need Caleb.
True.
We need to marvel at his just facial expressions.
Right.
I mean, most of the genre, in the first 3 genre settings, I don't think he talked at all. And it was just pure Aaron Paul face acting goodness.
Aaron Paul under the influence. It doesn't get better on TV.
I mean, he went through 3 different stages without saying a single thing. I think he might have made one comment about, like, how does this gun work?
Yeah. And we know he's in love with Dolores, though, right? He's, that he was looking at her when they were playing Love Story.
Yeah, and that single tear coming down his eye.
Of course, in Love Story, spoiler alert, she dies. So is Dolores going to die? In Love Story,
Ally
McGraw dies.
Yeah.
So that's what's going to happen with Dolores? Is that what they're saying? Because he's looking at her and he's Ryan O'Neal. She's Ally McGraw and she dies.
What I think they're trying to say is love never means having to say you're sorry. I think that if he was looking at a parking meter at that moment, he would have fallen in love with a parking meter. I mean, I think he does like Dolores, but I think the point of the drug is whatever genre it's in, that's the scenario you're in. So he could have been looking at,
Well, he didn't look at Liam that way.
I was.
Okay. But who was upset when Liam died because he was telling Caleb a lot of stuff? I mean, Caleb, because Caleb even mentions, he goes, "Yeah, I put a gun in my mouth and pull." So he did pull the trigger, right? He did shoot himself.
I mean, I haven't really liked Liam, but you can tell that like he's got some sense of something good because he doesn't want to tell people like the truth about them because
he tells Caleb, "You're the worst. You're the worst of the bunch."
Well, because I think he's trying to intimate that Caleb killed his friend that was like the fake AI at the beginning. Did it?
What I'm reading out of that is just pulling together a few strands, and it has to do with there is that one flashback where they show Caleb restrained, right? And I think they're insinuating that he was in that we'll call it, I think it's called re-education facility or whatever. So that there is a chance that, I mean, this might be like, I mean, it's kind of crackpot theory. There's a chance that he's actually he was designated one of these outliers, right?
Right.
Okay. And that because of that, like his actual data or his course was actually altered in such a way that would prevent him from actually getting access to any situation that will allow him to actually have some sort of a negative impact on society. So that I think we're going to figure out that all this data that is in Rehoboam is actually being altered. Right.
Okay.
It's not just that Rehoboam is predicting, and this ties into the whole subplot about Serac talking about trying to. I think I have it written down. 1 second. He talks about. He says we're all flawed, but we can change that. Okay. And so we think of when we hear that we're all flawed, that we can change that, meaning that we can improve ourselves, right?
Right.
But I think what it's more sinister than that. It's that he's saying if they identify an outlier that has a flaw, right, instead of actually fixing that, what they do instead is they change the prediction in such a way that it prevents them from harming the rest of society, but then basically stunts the individual.
Okay.
I think I just had a lightning flash of something.
Yeah, what's that?
Most the people that are missing on the street are in the asylum.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna. That obvious?
Yeah, I think we're gonna figure out. We're gonna figure out that the number of outliers has been growing exponentially over time.
And there was somebody wearing a mask again.
There's like two or three of them.
They're increasing.
I saw one for sure, and I said up there. I did want to say too that when Serac is talking to the president guy, and he's basically telling him, "No, this is what you're going to do, or we're going to destroy your economy." The flies were bothering the president, but not Serac.
Yeah,
and that happened in was it season 1 where the hosts weren't bothered by the flies.
Season 1, episode 1, right?
Yeah. So I don't know if that means anything. But it was driving him crazy, and Serac didn't bat an eye.
It was a good Easter egg for Easter.
So I'm not saying that he's a host, but I'm saying that
it's no Cadbury. I'll tell you that much.
Okay, but I wrote that down, and I wanted to talk about it because I remember from season 1 flies on the host. So anyway, go on.
I loved that scene just because it showed like how he was just with complete credibility, just threatening them, just intimidating them, and like especially where like, and I love the fact that they let that actor actually speak in Portuguese, right? So, and then he points to one of the like majors with a thick mustache and says, "That's the guy that's going to replace you."
Yeah. Well, he'll kill you and then replace you.
So that is already like, and you could see like the Presidente, he's like the gears are turning in his head and he's trying to think like, can that really happen? And he's like, I don't know, because it's so much techno babble that I guess it seems like it could happen, right? So
I think he believed it could happen, especially when he's saying your family will be dragged out in the middle of the night. And he's like, you could see the fear in his eyes. So they did a great. Both actors did a great job in that scene, I thought.
But also, like they make no bones about the fact that Serac is a violent man, like personally, one-on-one with people too.
Right.
So like last week he shot the guy in the head, even though he said he wasn't going to, and this week we saw him smash Dempsey against the plane.
Right.
And there's a very like important line that he utters right before he kills Dempsey, and they're going back and forth arguing about like what Rehoboam predicted, right? Dempsey's like, no, Rehoboam didn't predict that either of you guys would kill me. And then Serac just goes, he says, there are little wide spaces, and I'm not sure if it's wide or white because of his accent.
I thought he said white.
Little white spaces, rare moments where randomness interacts with your life that create a truly free space where you can make a choice above all agency. So he's basically saying like there are little gaps in time where he can mess with the system, right?
Right.
And so he's obviously using those to his advantage, right? And so that's why I'm thinking that as much as the overall system is able to predict this stuff, I have a feeling that he has a way to actually bend the outcome.
Well, I mean that's kind of they're explaining what they're doing, and that's what they explained that his brother did.
Right.
You know what I mean? His brother was messing with the system to make it so he killed them. I don't know if he was telling the truth or not. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
and what test was he doing on his? Was he trying to cure his brother? What was he doing? He was doing experiments on his brother.
Yeah, that whole scene to me is the one that's the most obviously macabre and disturbing, because you could see in there that it was some sort of a therapy,
Right.
but it also was like, basically some sort of, a few steps before euthanasia, right?
Yeah.
And it was, that's what they obviously call the re-education camps. And obviously they're making reference to all sorts of concentration camps and different regimes, right?
Right.
But do you think that's what's going on? Do you think there's actual euthanization or, final solutions happening?
Well, that's the thing. Like, they're kind of dancing around the subject, and it's not clear. Like that scene of, where Dempsey comes to the facility, and you can see it looks like they're like only like two. They look like there were old aircraft hangars, right? Because of the shape. So let's say there were about 3 of them there, and they were just kind of all outfitted the same. We don't know how far in the past that was. We don't know when Dempsey died, right?
No.
So we don't know what's happened since then.
Now, do you think the people in there are people that the machine can't control, that Serac can't control? So maybe, like you said, maybe they are killing them. Maybe they are, they're trying to re-educate them, but if they don't, boom, they're gone.
Well, this is where it ties into Caleb's story, right?
Right.
Sure.
Where we see that one flash scene where he's being restrained. So I'm assuming that that's actually at that facility, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that there must be some sort of situation where they're retraining them and almost like trying to change their personality, right?
Right. And if it doesn't work,
maybe they program themselves to kill themselves, and that's what he has.
And that's what I was thinking, in the terms that like the people who have like this destiny for suicide are probably the people that were identified as outliers, right?
Right.
And the term outliers is probably a highly subjective concept, right?
Yeah.
And that's where it ties into the whole ableism and euthanasia. Like the Rehoboam giving you a path that eventually leads to suicide, that keeps you away from doing other stuff and keeps you focused on doing something like, laying fiber with your robot buddy and eventually committing suicide. Okay. That in Rehoboam's mind is optimal to whatever else might have happened if your path wasn't predetermined.
Yeah, because Serac made a very big deal about not sending them to war to a meat grinder.
I know, and that was the thing that was interesting that he used that as an example, because I think that the event that probably caused Caleb to enter the re-education camp was whatever happened in war, right?
Right.
Okay, so not necessarily, because they showed clips of him basically almost being like an assassin guy for them, and they showed flashbacks of maybe it's in the war, maybe it's not. It's a recognizable actor. It's a guy who was in Galaxy Quest and a bunch of
Oh yeah.
I don't know his name, but they're gonna show more of that.
Right.
He was in Just Shoot Me.
Yeah. Totally.
So what you're saying is that at this point in time, we're not sure if that memory that we're accustomed to of him in a military situation versus the memory of him about to assassinate the guy who they took the bag off his head. We're not sure if that's the same or those are separate, or which one's real and which one's fake, right?
Now I think about it, the war ones that we've seen in the past look like him maybe breaking out of that facility.
Could be.
Because it's all, it's out of a white background facility. Who knows?
Or they let him out of the facility.
Or they let him think he's escaped the facility.
Right, because they need him for something down the line.
Or
maybe to kill Dolores. I'm just throwing it out there, just playing.
That would be a twist of M. Night Shyamalan type proportions, guys.
By the way, I really like how his watch, Serac's watch, shows that those two circles, the black circle and the white circle.
You mean his mood watch?
Get further and further apart.
And I don't know if you kids remember mood rings and mood watches, but that was my first thought. I go, oh, he's got a mood watch.
But that's been the image we've been seeing this whole time.
Yep.
Is the divergence. And now that we know exactly what's a divergence from, it's a divergence from Rehoboam's plan. Let me ask you a question. How come the guards of Rehoboam don't get to look at their phones during work? Because none of them seem to be freaking out after the
maybe the signal is blocked.
Yeah, maybe there's no phones on their floor because it's too important for them to work. They don't know what's going on in the outside world because they're stuck inside for some reason.
There's nothing worse when you go in somewhere and the employee's on their phone and you're waiting to be served. So
I forgot what Chips told the guy. I think I have it written down when he told him to leave the guy at the front desk.
He said, "Go take a pee."
Yeah, he said something
go
like
that. Go take a pee break. I think it was what he said.
I was like, you know what? If this is Chip's last episode, that they gave him some good lines at least.
He had a lot of good lines, and he, like I said, and he went out with a bang. No pun intended. But
yeah, that's how it should be.
Have we talked about Bernard's part in the chess game that she's playing? Because Chips Loris, as we should call him, basically said, you're the most important part. He has to be protected at all costs,
right?
Before he blows himself up. Mm. So they're really going out of their way. The Doloreses, the Delori, are going out of their way to protect
Bernard. Even let Stubbs win a fight.
Yeah. My wife is like, his name is Ashley? Anyway.
It's interesting, though, because it's like they talked about there are only two of us left, but I guess they don't count Stubbs as one of them, right?
Yeah, because he's not one that he brought out. He's like an older model. He's like a T1000 to the whatever. He's Arnold to the Jason Patrick,
Yeah, no, they've done a pretty good job of not giving us any hints as to why Bernard is important. I almost feel like, they do set it up, this duality between Dolores and Bernard. That makes me think that they are like two sides of the same coin. And it made me also think about this as I was watching season 2 again, that, they obviously emphasized the fact that Bernard had this special connection to Ford in the way that he sees Ford, and they're able to use Anthony Hopkins last season. They probably can't use him anymore, but I still have this feeling. Yeah, that's where all the money went to Aaron Paul instead. But I still have this feeling that Dolores might also have some sort of connection to Ford.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because Ford. Wait, Arnold invented Dolores, and then Dolores invented
Bernard. Right.
Yeah.
But that somehow that Ford is the link in between Bernard and Dolores. That they both share. They connect via Ford somehow. There's a triangle like that. So we'll see.
Yeah, they're keeping that. Jack, we have a chat going during the week, and sometimes I can participate and sometimes I can't. But your one thing this week was, I just want to point out randomly how good an actor Jeffrey Wright is. What brought that on? What were you watching?
That was me.
No,
that was you.
No. Eckhart said it, and I agreed with it.
Yeah,
okay.
It's because
he was watching from season 2.
Yeah, okay. Season 2. The way that again, I owe those two a big apology. The Jeffrey Wright scenes are phenomenal because they're so chopped up that you really can't appreciate them unless you've watched the season already once and you go back to watch it. And then again, cut out all the Sylvester and Maeve and
Felix.
and whatever, the guy that's kind of like Jay, I forgot what his name is, the writer guy. Right? Cut those scenes out.
Mitch Sizebloom.
Yeah, Jay Sizemore. Right? You just focus on the Bernard scenes, and he has to like. Not only does he have to like play, different Bernards, but they're at different points in time, and like you're watching them completely out of sync, and it's like. He has to be a host that is about to lose motor function and is about to, not be able to speak clearly. And he has to hide this from Charlotte. And it's just amazing acting.
I said this before in a letter, like either season 2 or season 1. And I know that Mike Bloom backed me up. Like, if anyone hasn't seen Angels in America, like, seriously, go watch it. Because I mean, it's my favorite Jeffrey Wright thing ever, and it's amazing. It's amazing. He plays multiple characters because it's a play, and they do multiple characters. It's really good.
Yeah, and I mean, since we're talking about him, it makes me realize actually how little he's done in season 3 so far.
Yeah.
So we're actually due like a big Bernard episode,
and I think, and I hope, and I pray that they make good on that. Because I have a big feeling that there's going to be a lot of unanswered things at the end of season 3.
I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, I'm totally fine. But it's more than just like she got off and who are the brain balls. It's going to be like a lot of things. I even think it might be like a huge cliffhanger. Almost.
And we'll find out in 2022.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, that's when it probably won't come back until 2022.
Well, and if everything else is pushed back because of other situations,
yeah, I mean, unfortunately, yeah, that's true. It could be 2023.
So right now, do we know if there are 2 more seasons after this?
Originally, the plan I thought was for 5 seasons.
Yeah.
There was a 5-season story arc. So I would assume that that's what's going to happen. I just wish it would be once a year and not every 2 or 3 years. I mean,
but they probably can speed it up now.
Some of us are getting older, so it's like come on, it's like push these things along a little faster. I mean, be honest with you, I'm gonna get to a point where I'm like, do I want to get involved with this show? It could take 10 years. I don't have 10 years, so I can't watch it. Sorry.
But they're getting better now in terms of saying up front, this is how many seasons we're going.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times people, I think that we've changed as far as our TV viewing. We don't want. Some people want it to go on forever. I mean, there are people that wanted Lost to go on forever, but I think no, it has to go. It's better. You say like with Breaking Bad and other shows, and we've talked about before, Dexter, that just went on way too long. It kills your legacy.
Yeah, I think that's the impact of cable in terms of the cable dramas. Somehow, there's much more emphasis on like, all right, let's pump as much quality as long as we can, and not then water it down in the last 2-3 seasons.
Can I make a divergence in WestWorld and talk about another show? Because I know
please.
No, because we haven't been doing that.
Okay, you can talk about Heroes, but just this time.
Jack is watching The West Wing, from what I understand.
Oh, good.
Well, for like the 80th time, yeah.
Yeah, 80th time, and you're. Last time I checked, you're on episode 4 of season 1. Have you moved?
We're probably about episode 15 or something like that, or something.
Okay.
My wife watched a couple without me, but it's okay because a lot of them have Mandy in it, and I can't stand her.
Don't worry, it's not. You only got 4 episodes of that.
I just she's the worst character in the history of West, and it's not a West Wing. It's not the actress. It's just literally they gave her nothing. She didn't work. If you watch the episode, they try to make her this snarky hipster type person it doesn't. And she always comes in and with these annoying lines, and it's the right. I don't think they knew what to do with her because she didn't work well with any of the other cast.
Well, yeah, and I think the story goes that Donna was so strong.
Yeah,
kind of pushed Mandy out as a foil for Josh.
Right, and her and Josh did not work. They didn't work well together.
No,
so they had to get rid of her.
And they never mentioned it, and she was just gone.
Well, she had that bad. Remember, she wrote something how to defeat Bartlett before she started working for him, and it got out. So that's how they got rid of her. But,
I heard there's a piece of paper floating around.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. My opinion of the show has changed quite a bit since because I watched it like once a year for a long time and a lot of background watching. And I've probably seen it like 10 times or more if you ask my wife. And my opinion on it has changed greatly over the years. I can't really watch it too much anymore, simply because if it has anything to do with influencing certain people to get into politics or act a certain way based on a TV show, and if that's inspired so many people to go into politics, and now we have what we have now, I can't get it. I can't really get behind it too much anymore.
I mean, it was.
I'm gonna tell the truth.
I mean, I've watched a few episodes here and there, but the sense I get is that it was just, it was idealistic from a different point in time, right?
Right.
I mean, it was.
Late
really,
90s, early.
Let's say, the post Cold War period, the first part of the post Cold War period before 9/11, right?
Right.
Yeah. Especially this because I think 9/11 happened.
They have a 9/11 episode, I think. Yeah.
But probably towards the end, right?
No, it was
like the third season, I think. Yeah.
Oh, really? But
you still can't beat the second half of that second season. Like, I think it's the best.
So, but I mean, it's I should say it's post Berlin Wall, pre Great Financial Crisis. So,
right.
Yeah.
So like it's like still like one of the best periods of modern American history, right? So,
and I always found it interesting. There's a lot of like Sopranos podcasts popping up right now because all these Sopranos stars are sitting at home with nothing to do.
Hey.
So, yeah, Dre DiMatteo has one. Michael Imperioli has one with Steven Sciarippa. Bacala and Christopher. They have one together, and those shows came out at like the same time, and it's literally like the old guard of TV, like 22 episodes on network, and the beginning of this like Sopranos thing. They happened in the same year.
Yeah, but the thing about it is when Sopranos first came out, it took a few seasons before it became a big hit because it was on HBO, right? That's when HBO really started doing dramas, right?
From flipping from movies to...
Yeah. I mean, I would say the thing that it was both Sopranos and Sex and the City were probably the first two really big things on HBO.
Because they had more comedies, I think.
Yeah,
they had Dream
On and Arliss and all those stuff.
And those sucked.
I watched Dream On when I was a kid. It was weird.
I watched Dream On and Arliss.
But I remember people in '98 when I was working in New York talking about Sopranos, and it was like they were kind of embarrassed to talk about it. Like they're like, "Yeah, I'm watching this show. It's kind of stupid, but I like it. It's called Sopranos." I was like, "Okay."
Night one, I was full on, man. I was there. I remember watching. It was awesome.
I remember like when the final season happened, like that's all that people were talking about, and it was just, norms has changed. That it was okay.
Well, it started getting a lot of awards, and people started,
It's also like people were comfortable talking about shows where these horrendous main characters were viewed as protagonists, even though the whole point of the show was to show just like how terrible these people are, right?
Right.
Well, and at the beginning, it started out kind of lighthearted and funny with a lot of gangster fun, and at the end, it was like literally like the end of the world every week. Like
it was like The Godfather.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you talk about like West Wing, and Sopranos being on at the same time. It's like Sopranos found something, like you refer to Godfather, but I think about like all the gritty late 70s, early 80s New York-based stuff right? That was
Serpico.
Yeah, all that stuff, like, it just came back into vogue. I mean, it never really went away. It just wasn't on TV.
Well, I mean, they basically just lifted Goodfellas for Sopranos, basically, and
Yep.
Even took the cast, I think most of it.
So, all right, Ethan, now it's your turn to defend Heroes.
Did I say I was going to talk about that?
No, but I'm going to talk about it now.
Well, I always thought that the first season of Heroes I thought it ended really well. I mean, I really like that big moment at the end where he comes in and says, I'm going to save the cheerleaders so you can save the world, all fit together in a puzzle. And then it said end of book 1, start of book 2. And then at the end, they had Hero in the thing. And that's what I remember. I haven't rewatched it. I know I'm not in lockstep with everyone on the Jane Jack Facebook page about what happened in Heroes, okay? Sorry, I don't get it. I remember Audrey from Little Shop of Horrors was in it, and the guy who was the Spock was in it.
The only reason I bring it up is because I remember numerous occasions on the Lost podcast where Jack would just take these gratuitous shots at the Heroes fans. It was outstanding. Like, it would just be completely random too.
I was a fan up until Ethan said it was great. The cliff, I go, wait, that's it? That's it. And then they went to season 2 and went off the rails. I go, this show just.
By the way, actually, when I was watching WestWorld season 2 before this rewatch, when I was watching it, in a bit of a rush before season 3, I really got like a Hero season 2 vibe in terms of the way that like the show was Westworld was trying to do fan service by showing like they thought it'd be all cool to do Samurai World. And it's just like
what I thought Heroes should have done is they should have ended, season 1 should have ended with all those heroes, concluded the story, and start a whole new story with new heroes the second season, because they tried to do this where they keep it, it's like The Killing. Some people love The Killing. I said after season 1, I go, wait a minute, you were going to tell us who it was. It's supposed to be a whodunit.
I think they screwed up with The Killing. I really do.
And you dragged it out and dragged it out and dragged it out. And I said,
yeah, I mean, with The Killing, they basically it should have been, I didn't see the third season, but the first 2 seasons should have been 1 season. And they split it. But by the way, Jack, when I watched that live, and this is where like I was actually, for whatever reason, this is pre-Twitter, so I was watching the comments streaming on Facebook. And everyone was like, oh my God, that cop is the killer. And I was like, no, the cop's not the killer. Like, all we know is that he's dirty, right? And I was getting in, like, I think that was the night I got into the most fights ever on social media, like calling people dumb. And it was like, and I could feel myself channeling like an evil version of Jack Glatfelter that was like parsing it. I was like, no, there's no evidence of the cop having killed her. All we know is that he's dirty. That's the reveal. So
was it the Joel Kinnaman is the cop they were thinking it was?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
But to me, it just, it was, I loved it up until again the end. I said, and then the final conclusion, season 2 of who did it, you're like going, oh, come on.
I thought
that's what you came up with?
Wasn't it like the mayor's assistant dude?
It was an accident.
No, it was the sister.
Yeah.
Right? She, the sister of the aunt, killed her by accident, right, or something?
Yeah,
like that?
There was an accident that.
And I'm like, really? This is what all this drawn out thing, and it turned out. I go, that's what you came up with? Come on now.
But that was, I think, I mean, it was based on an original like Swedish or Danish show.
Yeah.
So, and I mean that's probably like. That might be like what's considered cool in that part of the world. So maybe it just didn't translate to, American TV habits. I don't know.
Yeah, but like when Heroes, The Killing, unfortunately, Seattle's a big town. I'm sure there's more than one murder every year. So you could have had another. My thing is the 2 cops were great together. The actor and actress, they worked really well together. Have another case. Just have it. They solve it each. Just have another case each year. There was no reason. There was no reason to drag it out.
This is where The Wire was perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're thinking, Jack, that you would have liked the killing kind of turn into I'm blanking. No, what is it? The True Detective, but just with the same pair every season.
Right, because they worked so well together.
But
I mean, you weren't going to get Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey to do it every year, and I don't think it would have worked because it was just a different type of. But there was no reason. Okay, we're in Seattle. It rains every day, so
they put these cops in these new shows through so much in the first season. I can see why they can't do that because it's just so much. It's not Peter Falk every week.
Yeah,
watch forever.
I know it's not Columbo. It's a different. Again, TV's different.
Yeah, it's a good point, Ethan. Like it's like you kind of harvest it all in order just to keep people glued to the TV.
I mean, how much stuff did what's his name, Matthew McConaughey's character, like what's left for him to go through?
Yeah,
exactly. Like after all that.
But you have like you said, Columbo was great, but Columbo I don't think would work today. He'd have to be it had to be completely different because people wouldn't tune into it.
Yeah, he'd have to be Columbo, but he'd also have to
he'd have to have the dark side to him. There'd have to be something more than
work at the dominatrix at night.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's because TV has changed, and it's actually probably changed for the better.
It's grittier.
Yeah,
I mean, look.
I just finished Ozark season 3. And I'm like going.
I've heard Ozark season 3, and I haven't really watched Ozark. I heard it ends spectacularly.
I couldn't.
I'll be honest with you. I didn't predict that ending. That's all I'm saying.
I couldn't get past a few episodes of the first season of Ozark because the main character reminds me way too much of somebody that I know in finance. So I couldn't get past that.
Oh, Jason Bateman?
Yeah. But
it's funny because my wife said, he just plays the same guy every...
Yeah.
I said, he does. I go, but season 3, they really let him... He actually acts.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He was in The Outsider. The Outsider I really enjoyed. And there's another thing. We were on the cop shows. CBS All Access, I was watching Picard, and they gave you access to this one called Interrogation. And that is a whole case in one season. And they make it so you can watch them out of order except for the first one and the last one.
Okay.
And that had really good actors in it, like Vincent D'Onofrio and Andre Wario and a bunch of other people. And that was really good.
And speaking of gritty and pulling it back to Westworld, I mean, this was the episode where, like, at the end of it, it really got the feeling like, except maybe for Bernard, there are no good guys in the show.
Well, when Liam says, he goes, and you're the worst of them.
Yeah.
To Caleb, he goes, because you're thinking Caleb's a good guy, and he's telling him, no, you're the worst. You got Dolores there who just kills people. You got Marshawn Lynch and the other who are just killing people. They're not nice people, and she tells him, you're the worst.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's that like you're the worst because you're the worst, you've done the most damage, or if it's you're the worst because you're so blind as to what you've done in general.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And his hypocrisy is so great because
he did seem upset because first he tells Liam the rat story, how he was overseas and they would do the rats and how, but then after he sees what happens, he seems to have changed. I don't think he liked what Dolores did. Right? Because you see people, because he's human, he sees people that are upset, and he has. I don't know. It seemed like he did change his. He just changed his. Of course, he was on drugs though too. So.
Yeah, but I agree. I mean, I think his character arc is now in. What is the expression? In for a penny, in for a pound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, and I mean, it's.
Well, yeah. I mean, did you get the feeling that Dolores could have either? I didn't know if the plan was for him to go with her or she was kind of done with him at that point. Whatever he said.
With Caleb?
Yeah.
it was weird because she said, "Come on." She did say, "Come on, we need to go."
Okay.
But he wanted to find out. The guy's bleeding Liam's bleeding like crazy. I mean, there's no way he's going to survive. Tell me, who am I? Who am I?
Oh,
it was something like that. What he didn't say something like that, and then of course Liam dies before he tells us who he is because that's the way TV shows are.
By the way, this is actually a good moment to point out like how far we've come from assuming that Caleb was some sort of a hybrid or a host.
right.
Yeah.
Just 5 hours ago. It shows you how much they've actually how much what large story they've spun this season, right?
Can we shed any more light on the mother situation?
Not yet.
Okay.
I think we were going to figure out that it was nothing.
Well, if Liam was in a hospital, right? I'm not Liam. Caleb was in a hospital, right? That's what we believe. So the mom we know is in a hospital.
Maybe when he came out of the hospital, he wasn't her son anymore because he's been diverged so much.
Yeah.
Messed with. And she knows
something that he's maybe a killer, or like I said, maybe this is all a plot that the machine predicts the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they probably would have known that Caleb and Dolores would eventually come together.
That's
what I'm saying. Is Caleb going to eventually try and kill Dolores because that was what they've trained? This is going to be my crackback theory in the podcast.
I'm gonna counterpoint that, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
The way that the Rehoboam is built is it's built on data from their world, right?
Right.
I don't think there's anything in this world that has some sort of an inkling of or can predict the arrival and the actions of a Delos host on the mainland.
Right.
So that I don't think it can predict Dolores influencing Caleb.
Because Liam couldn't read Dolores.
Right. Because there's no data on her in the system.
Right.
Right? There's no one else who's like her.
Except for Charlotte.
or that Caleb he was programmed to be an assassin for Serac somewhere down the line, that he could use Caleb as a killer.
I think that's a very good theory. I like that. And I think
that could have been what Liam was saying. You're the worst because you're a trained killer.
And you don't know that, but I know I can see the real thing. Maybe the thing. Well, wouldn't Dolores be able to see that and show him? And she showed him the suicide one, the suicide feature.
That's where I think that like there's some aspect where Serac is messing with the system, right?
Right.
Yeah. That the profile says suicide, but it's actually hiding the real data.
Yeah.
And but so it's hiding the actual data, but because the profile gets changed to suicide, that then guides the system to guide him to the outcome. So it's almost like there are two paths. There's the path he's probably going to be on, and then the path that once Rehoboam sees that path, the outlier path, says, we're going to guide you to this other path.
Yeah.
It was easier to talk about heroes.
I mean, I did like the fact that, like for every episode up until now, at the end of the last episode, they really, really, really threw us for a loop. We didn't really know where it was going to go or what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so they give you different names of episodes that you have to look up and figure out it's a poem or it's a book or it's about the Statue of Liberty or whatever. But this one is
right in your face.
And the description of the episode is just say no. And so,
well, Caleb didn't really have a chance to just say no, right?
He certainly didn't. And I watched the end of the last episode, and I'm going to say something obvious now. Ed Harris is a really good actor. I really enjoyed it, I think Jeffrey Wright's a little better, but I think Ed Harris is great.
Yeah, I mean, you have like really good actors on the show.
Yeah, they don't skimp on the acting.
Which is probably why, season 2 again felt so disappointing, right? It's like, why would you waste screen time on all these like sideshows and that wooden teddy, right?
Because you have a sideshow that happened to be Giancarlo Esposito, right?
Well, I mean, Hector is worth it, but
Right, yeah, I was explaining to another person I talked to just about how budgets work, and it's like if you're worried about like a screen credit or you have a chance to have Regina King in your episode, you're gonna pay the money to have Regina King and screw your credit for the entire season.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So it's like Anthony Hopkins costs a lot of money. Giancarlo Esposito probably costs a lot of money for a day. You know what I mean? Aaron Paul probably gets a pretty penny these days.
Yeah, he's not working cheap. That's for sure.
Yeah.
No, everyone brought their A game on this episode tonight.
Yeah, it was again this whole season. Like you said last week, you guys were saying it could be the best episode of WestWorld of all time, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
Last week, well, yeah.
And to me, this episode, I'm not saying it was better than last week, but it wasn't because of how many times you see a TV show where the episode is, oh my God, this episode was so good, and then the next week it's like, what happened?
This was in the same neighborhood.
Yeah, the story just kept it just kept moving the story along, and to me, that's what they've done this whole season.
I know one show that's like.
Go ahead.
I just know one show that's like that, but I'm not going to talk about it.
No, Leftovers.
Yeah, Leftovers from season 2 on.
Yeah,
the same thing. I like season 1, but a lot of people don't. Yeah. But because it's just depressing. But no, that's what I'm saying about because you're going into the time. I'm going, I hope this episode's good, and it just right away I'm like going, oh my God, this is amazing. I mean, it was, and to me, it's like I said, it has that sci-fi element, and you're like going, all right, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool, and what they did with Aaron Paul with the drugs and his, going down, movie memory lane was just fantastic.
Yeah.
And for a minute, I was thinking to myself, is this a bit too cheesy with the movies and the music and the bazooka out of the car thing? You know what I mean? Like their excuse to use all this big music and their excuse to have a big, almost Dark Knight type scene. You know what I mean? In the middle of it. But after they did it so well with the music and he was on the drug, I thought it was really good, a really good Watchmen ripoff. I thought it was really good.
Well, it's like it's where they're stretching the possibility of the show, and that's what I like. And that's where I always felt like the park was a little bit too confining. Like there were even as I'm rewatching season 2, it feels like they're crisscrossing the same desert multiple times in the episode, and it reminded me of the old joke with Lost, how they keep running through on the same path up and down the jungle, right?
Yeah, they got I think we talked about it last week. They got caught, they got stuck with the park, and it was like they couldn't expand the story because it was, what else could they do? And
it's tricky too, because I think they were probably last season they were trying to satisfy too many different fan bases.
Right.
Like there must have been a casual fan base that was just like, oh, I want to see what the other parks are, right? In fact, I think that we'll call them the Jay-ish fans, because I distinctly remember him at the end of season 1 podcast going like, do you think we're going to go to the ancient Rome park and stuff like that, right? Like he was getting excited for that stuff, right?
Well, the movie didn't really, Westworld, the movie was just, it showed the other parks.
Yeah.
It was mainly Westworld. Yeah. You had Yul Brynner as the host that goes bonkers and starts killing everybody.
There's so much repetition in season 2 of just like the equivalent of log carrying guys being gunned down.
Right.
And it's just it's like you can see like they were struggling to fill like those 8 episodes.
10.
10 episodes.
10 episodes, yeah.
Well, that was probably mistake number 1, right?
Right.
If they had condensed it down to 8 and just had a few scenes of like the hosts shooting up the QA or whatever they're called in the headquarters would have been a lot better. I mean, we have some of that here too, in terms of like Dolores, gunning down just faceless people in black SUVs. But you see, they don't do the same thing always. Like tonight, they should.
But there was a point to it. They're being.
Well, the point to it tonight was like they got to combine it with the genre drug,
right?
Which made it much more entertaining, right?
And the Teddy cycle came back.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's gone though.
Yeah.
Well,
another
one. Yeah. I don't think they're going back to the park, guys.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I don't think so either. There's no reason. There's no reason to go back to the park.
Yeah.
At this point, but I don't know if Jim and Carol are still in the chat. But if you are in the chat, did you enjoy the episode? Or anybody that's listening, just say you can pop in anytime and say yes, I enjoyed it. No, I didn't. Anyway, but I can't wait.
Check out Around Heroes, man.
I mean, to be fair, though, I think they probably do have to go, if they follow the original script, they have to go back to the park just to explain that final scene of season 2 for the Ed Harris.
You're right. Absolutely right.
So they will have to go back at some point. I'm assuming that is still part of the canon.
And her plan is to have a place for all of them. So at some point, we'll need to see maybe the Valley Beyond again with them transferring people or hosts Maeve's daughter, all that stuff. So
I guess we lost Jim and Carol.
I wonder what the Valley Beyond looks like now that they've done with it, that they've been living in there.
It could be
a lot of trash.
It could be chaos. They thought that they would go there and everything be hunky dory, but you always got someone thinks they should be in charge, and someone. It's like they're trying to build this great, Serac. Oh, we're going to build this perfect world with perfect people. It just, you can't do it.
You got some a-hole over there screaming, you can't tell him what he can't do. And over here, you got people playing ball.
Exactly. There's always, and like I said, I think it was you, Eckhart, was saying, or maybe it was Ethan, that's what they're trying to do with these, people that don't function like his brother. They try and like reprogram them or do something with them because you're not fit in our society. So we want happy people. But then when Dolores shows up, okay, you're not actually happy.
And the last thing I'll just say is we know for a fact that she's going after that place. She's going to try to get those people and free them.
Right. Do we know that? Does she say anything about that?
I think so, yeah.
All I know is that I think the only thing I remember, and I'll go back and watch it, is that on Bernard's screen, he sees the term re-education and then either camp or facility or something that's cut off. So I think for a fact Bernard is going to go there.
Okay.
Jim
said, yes, he enjoyed the episode, but my initial feelings was a letdown compared to last week.
I agree, Jim.
Can't be so critical. You got to give them some slack.
Again, I think last week was so good.
Yeah.
But to me, I thought the episode, it was like a continuation of last week's episode. I mean, I've always said that if an episode, when at the end of the episode, you're like, no, don't end. And it ended. I was like,
Jim, if you want to feel better about this episode, go back and pick any episode from season 2. Watch that and then watch this episode again. You'll feel a lot better.
Oh, he's going to do a rewatch, he says. So,
I was going to do a rewatch this week, but I don't know. It all depends on if I feel the burning need to write a letter tonight, like I did last week.
So, Jack, what is your crackpot theory for your podcast?
I think I'm going to go with it Caleb is an assassin, that he's been reprogrammed to be an assassin but doesn't know it yet. So, something like that. I don't know. I'm floating around with ideas in my head.
Hey, man, don't take any S from those other two guys, okay?
No, I don't.
You're just as good as them, no matter what.
No matter what they say.
No matter what they say.
I'm behind. Are they giving him a hard time?
No.
I don't know. I listen to I fast forward right to the end to my letter, and And I hear it get shouted out and called out for lazy theorizing, and then I turn it off and cry myself to sleep, and then I go right back to get on a live Lost. By the way, 2 of the people that were in that chat room are right here with you, Jack. I just wanted you to know that.
I know. It was a fun night. I
thought you were thinking, don't these guys have anything else to do?
No, that was good. That one was fun. Yeah.
It's always good to chat. I haven't spoken with Jorge in got to be like at least 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, when you have Jack, Jorge, and Ralph as 3 legs of the 4 of the, you can still balance it out. It doesn't matter who the 4th leg is,
I have to say when I saw Jay go again, thinking about something really hard, and I really thought he was going to go back to Lost, and it was just about a different kind of candy. I just pulled back a little bit. I was like, okay, but that's all I'll say.
Like I said, I was trying to get it back to the Lost talk, but then they dragged me in with because I like jelly beans and some of the other candy. So, but it was no one really complains. It was fun. It was fun talk. I mean, again, Stranger in Strangeland. There's only so much you can talk about. And then Trisha Tanaka, it was great to hear what he had to say about Cheech and him sleeping on the set and all the other stuff that he. Because I've always wanted. I don't think I could be an actor. I couldn't do those 18-hour, 19-hour days where you sit there and wait for 2 hours to do a scene, and you're like, you're sitting around farting around while they're setting up the set and all the different angles. And
I was watching an alien documentary, and Tom Skerritt was telling the documentary about some of the stuff he had to go through on the set of Alien. I'm like, no, I couldn't. Like sitting around for like 18 hours in a suit.
I just couldn't do it. I mean, I would be bored.
And that was like, I mean, now you at least have a phone, right? Back then you didn't have a smartphone to check out.
Yeah.
You had to read a book.
Yeah.
So,
So on the set of that movie, they had the actors breathing in carbon dioxide in their suits and stuff like that. Anyway, watch Alien. It's fun.
All right.
Anything else? I guess we lost Carol. Carol never responded. So anything else you guys want to talk about? Oh, wait. Douglas.
Yes.
Meandering into Alien and Lost and God knows what.
Yeah, that's just like WestWorld. We're all over the place.
This is my only free hour in the week. Okay, sorry.
We did talk a lot about WestWorld, though, tonight. So.
Yes. And Heroes.
And Heroes and West Wing and
The Killing.
Well, Douglas, did you like tonight's episode of WestWorld? I was going to say West Wing. I'm so confused. Anyway,
Zoe Bartlett's definitely a host.
Yeah. But no, overall, so we did enjoy it. We got 3 more episodes. Any predictions on what we think is going to happen? Douglas says you did talk a lot about WestWorld. We did. We just kind of like Eckhart said. It's like we're all over the place. So, any predictions to wrap this up? Any predictions on what we think? How this is going to? We got 3 episodes left. I'm sure they're going to be action packed. I saw the previews for next week. I don't know if we want to spoil anyone. We didn't see the previews, but I was wrong on someone returning.
Yeah. No, someone returns, and there's more Room 23 shenanigans to be had, and no Malcolm McDowell. That's all.
I mean, the way they're hinting at is that we're going to get. I mean, we're getting a situation similar to they said it point blank. People are off their loop.
Yeah,
so we're going to get a chaotic situation in the world. That is a macro version of the chaos that happened in the park.
Right.
I think that's where this is going for the rest of the season.
I think we might see more Tandy Newton. And I'm professional.
All right, guys. Douglas, did you like it? Did you like it? I'm giving. You got 30 seconds to answer me. Anyway, we like what we're doing. Again, we keep this loose. We time to talk about different stuff. But if you like what we're doing, give it a thumbs up. if you don't like what we're doing, you don't have to give us a thumbs down. Just say, hey, I don't like you talking about West Wing. I don't like you talking about Heroes. I don't like you talking about anything other than WestWorld. But
thanks, dude.
Anyway,
that's the end of our show, Donk.
We have a good time doing this, and it's a lot of fun. And we do it right after the episode airs. You can join us in the chat to subscribe to the channel. Join us in the chat. You can give your thoughts in the chat. And he says he doesn't have thumbs, so he can't give a thumb.
Douglas is officially my favorite fan, if that's what we can label him as.
Thank you, Jim, for your good, honest feedback. We appreciate it.
Actually, to be fair, I don't think he's a fan of ours, but I'm definitely a fan of his.
I do like the fact that he doesn't. His answer is he doesn't have thumbs, and so he can't give a thumbs up or not, or a thumbs down. I appreciate that, Douglas. Anyway, we'll be back next week at 10:25 Eastern Time. See, sometimes the chat is the best part of any show.
Certainly not on Lost last week.
All right, guys, we're out of here. We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.